Okay, Etsy have been changing the search algorithm a lot over the past year or so, and they're still changing it even now. So I've been hesitant to make a video about SEO or the search algorithm or any of it. It's the elephant in the room. It's the thing that people want to hear about, and they keep telling me they do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a video about my understanding of the Etsy algorithm as it stands, with the caveat that it could change this afternoon, because when Etsy Etsys, it Etsys hard. Okay, where to start? I guess the best place to start would be to say, I think the days of us going into incognito mode, asking our friends and family to look at our shops and see if our items appear on page 1, those days I think are over. I actually want to say those days are over, but I'm going to say think, because I feel like I need to tread carefully here. But seriously, the Etsy search algorithm, it kind of has two sides to it now. It's like a coin. I do like my metaphors, and this is like a coin. Do I need my light on today? Yeah, let's put our light on. I'll keep talking while I put my light on. On the one side of it, there's things that we as sellers can control. And on the other side of it, it's down to buyer behavior and buyer history, and we don't have any control of that. Typical. I've just got my light set up and the sun comes out. So the first side of this coin, the one that we have control over, is called candidate set retrieval, and it's basically where a buyer will put the thing that they're searching for into the search bar, and Etsy will then search for the top 1,000 most relevant listings based on the information provided by sellers. And the seller information that Etsy's referring to are our tags, our titles, our attributes, and there's a fourth one, categories. Basically, keywords SEO, which is why I always say when I'm talking about the whole cogs metaphor, you know, like the gears, the Etsy machine, SEO is one of the bigger cogs. It is important. It gets a lot of attention, and sometimes to the detriment of other cogs. However, it is important because to get found in search, this is how Etsy find us. Okay, so the next side of the coin, say you have one of your items is in that top 1,000. It doesn't sound like much when you consider how many items are on Etsy, but when you consider how most buyers won't scroll through more than, well, you're lucky if they go onto page 2. Most of the time people will only scroll halfway down, 3/4 of the way down the first page, and then if they can't find what they want, they'll go back up to the search bar and just type in a different search term or amend their existing one. But it is buyer behavior that determines which items end up on page 1 and in what order. Our information does come into play here, but is only relevant in terms of how it matches the buyer. That sounds very wishy-washy. This will be where things like, say for example, the buyer hasn't put in a colour, but they have recently been searching for a lot of yellow items, and then they're searching for a floral bag. If there are floral bags with a lot of yellow in them, and maybe the attribute or some keywords of yellow, chances are that Etsy will then make them rank higher in the search because of the buyer's behavior with the colour yellow in the past. That's an example, and again, that's my understanding of it. Other things come into play at this point, things like how many clicks our items have had, how many favorites they've had, how many times that item may have been put into a cart or even bought. These are all things that are going to help us rank higher, because these are things that are going to help the algorithm determine which one is best matched to the buyer's behavior, which, as we've spoken about, is going to be different from person to person. So those 4 things that I just mentioned, the clicks, the favorites, the adding to cart, and the purchases, all of those things go towards your listing quality score, and that does come into account when matching people or ranking where you rank. Bearing in mind that when you search for stuff, you also get ads at the top and the middle, and I think the bottom as well, although I can't remember about the bottom because I, as a buyer, very rarely get to the bottom of page 1. But yes, so it can be tricky to be found on page 1, which is why it is so important to know who your customer is and talk to them and choose search terms and long tail keywords that they would be searching for. I know a lot of people don't want to hear this. To be honest, it sounds like a very wishy-washy piece of advice. Know who your customers are. You're like, great, okay, that's brilliant, but how? Well, this is where you have to get your detective hat on. And the first place you could start is your Etsy stats page. If you go onto that, you can scroll down and you can see how shoppers found you. If you click on the first link, which is the Etsy app and other Etsy pages, if you click on that, it will take you to another page where they literally show you the search terms that people were using when they found your items and clicked on them. There is a wealth of clues to let you know what kind of people are finding your items. In this How Shoppers Found You section, you can also see which social media channels brought in traffic. And if you have several and it shows that one in particular is bringing the majority of the traffic to your shop, go back to that channel and have a dive into the people that are following you who may have been clicking on your link into your shop. Those are your customers. And don't worry if you haven't got an exact answer to that question, because I've never had an exact answer to that question. You get an overall feeling for who your kind of customer is. And that's what I have in mind when I'm looking for keywords. And then I use a keyword search tool. So, well, I personally use eRank, but there's also Marmalade. And I think when we think of how the Etsy search algorithm works, we need to stop thinking like a seller, and we have to think about the algorithm and what its job is. And that is simply, in a nutshell, to match buyers with the thing they're most likely to buy. So you just have to think about it like that, because too many times I've seen people talk about the Etsy algorithm as if it is a thing that is working against them or trying to bury them, and it just doesn't make sense. That's not how Etsy works. What they're doing is trying to highlight the listings and the shops that are most likely to convert to sales. That is why I made this video, because yes, of course you want to get found, and of course you want to optimize your shop so that it gets found in the search algorithm. However, only a part of that is within our control, and the rest is determined by the buyer. And what we really should be focusing a lot of our attention on is optimizing our shops for sales, because we can get found on the search page, but if our work stops there, that's all that's going to happen. But I wanted to make this video because I have seen recently some people still talk about trying to get onto page 1, and I just worry about that, because while of course we want to get onto page 1, how we go about that now is different, and there is a chunk of getting onto page 1 that is pretty much out of our control, and we have to be okay with that. To describe the search algorithm now in a very simplified metaphor, it's that coin. There's the one side, which is our input and the influence that we have as sellers, and then on the flip side, there's the side that is completely controlled by the buyer and the buyer's behavior and the buyer history. Now you can see why I don't usually touch this topic, because one, it moves too fast and the information can become dated very quickly. But if you are interested in hearing me talk about this some more, I do deeper dives into these sorts of topics over in my memberships. And more recently, we've done a deeper dive into converting views into sales. So head on over there and check that out if that's of interest to you. The link's in the description below. Give this video a watch because I've covered it there too, and I will see you next week. Have a lovely day.